Analyzing the game between Nathan L. and Fireball. This was played in Team Event 53, third round under 1800 section. White's team has already clinched the match 3-0, so I guess all Black can try for is try to get a point and get some game points. But let's see what happens. I'm glad both players showed up to play and didn't agree to a draw. Okay, French defense kind of. Now definitely French exchange variation. Black should have no trouble equalizing this. His French bishop is out and it's developed. Okay, so far so good for both sides. They're getting their pieces out. And that's kind of necessary to bolster c4. And clearly Black intends to now castle queenside and try to launch an attack on the king side. Now look at that. Black's got almost all his pieces out, except he hasn't castled. And White's still sitting here with 4 guys on the queen side all at home. Both sides are playing quickly. Okay, now it's time for White to get developed. And kind of an ambitious move. The idea is that White is going to do his attack too. It has to be coming. It needs to be coming because opposite side castling has dictated this. Okay, so this is thematic, transferring the knight to either h4 or f4 as sees fit. White gets his pawns rolling. Now notice in this position, although both sides are priming for attacking the enemy king, White hasn't really developed these 2 pieces, the ones I always point to. Although one could argue that the rook is going to stay on a1 for a while because there's a pawn storm coming and not exactly sure where he wants it, so it's going to end up on stay where it is or move 1 or 2 files to the right. So still the White bishop on c1 is not developed, and I always like to point that out to remind you guys, get those 2 guys out. Don't want to give odds of a queen and a rook. And I'm not sure White had to part with the bishops here, but it does create a little bit of weakness in the Black camp. But if anything, if Black's careful, if he feels an attack is coming, a7 is weak, but if need be, the king can run if we can do it, and then the knight can hop back to e6 and shift the rook over to e8. This is ideal. King to e7 and f8, and voila, he's castled kingside. So anyway, that takes how many moves? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves. White gets 5 moves too. Queen e2 to a6 takes pawn. Now queen b7 because the king is run, and a5, and that pawn's not going to queen. The rooks are connected. But anyway, okay, queen b3. I just like to point things out. Now, Black took a good 11 minutes on this move, and I'm kind of surprised that he didn't see that he is now winning this game. So, Black to play and win. I usually say Black to play and do the best he can, but Black to play and win. Pause the video. Okay, this is, now you've resumed, this is a thematic little trick here, and it has to do with a temporary piece sacrifice because you're going to regain the piece due to the position of the pieces. The weak points here are g2 and f3. Okay, now what Black does is he just takes this pawn. Now what happens next? Okay, White has 2 choices. His rook's under attack, he can move it, or he can take the knight. Those are his 2 choices, right? I don't see he has any other useful Zwischenzug. So if he moves the rook, he's just admitted that he's dropped a pawn, and if he's not careful, he's going to drop more. Because, like for instance, on rook f1 or rook d1, White plays bishop takes f3 and collects a piece. So that would leave rook e3, and that just drops the rook. So he's pretty much forced to take, right? Now we just take here with check. Okay, it's a very, very forcing move, and White must retake, right? Otherwise he's down a piece, right? Or he's, well, Actually, he's not down a piece. He's just under attack but white is black is a pawn ahead. Where are you going to put the king? You better not put it on G1. You're going to get checkmated. And if you put it on F1, oh, I think you're going to get checkmated there too, right? You see it? If king G1, queen G4, check, king F1, queen G2 mate, right? And if king F1, we have queen H3 check, king G1, and queen G2 mate. So when white takes the knight with check, black takes the knight with check, white has to retake. Now here's the simple tactic and theme. Queen G4 check. Now the king must give up protection of the knight. Okay? He must. So the only square really to move to is F1, because if you go to H1 you're picking up the knight with check, and that's no good for white. So white just backs up and black collects the knight on F3. Now what differences have happened? Well, we've gotten rid of some minor pieces, and black has won a pawn. Objectively, black should be winning this. The white king is in serious danger. Black is threatening to play rook E8, followed by either rook to E8, followed by queen H1 mate. Now, white has time to prepare for that, but that's easier said than done. Let's construct a plan. What are you going to do? Well, you can put the bishop on E3 and block the E file. Okay, but then if anything, black can just grab the pawn on H2, taking a second pawn, and then follow up with some other moves. And white's attack is still not quite there. It's going to take white a few moves to generate any kind of activity against the black king. So what's white going to do here, really? It's a tough position. He really doesn't have a good move. He could play H4, but that's just going to forestall the loss of that pawn. Matter of fact, black can collect it right away with queen H3 check, and the white king is still in trouble. So white's almost forced to play something like rook E3 or bishop E3, and if anything, like I say, black can just collect the pawn. Now what's white going to do? Try to get his attack going? Okay, fine. Let him. Black can survive this. Anyway, he didn't see it, or he saw it and didn't see it all the way through, or maybe he thought he saw something else, but it's an unfortunate thing to miss, but it was missed. H5 is ambitious. Clearly, black's probably maybe trying to bring this rook into play, but this also gives white now a little time to generate his own activity. Now the trick is still there, but it doesn't work, and there's a difference, and that's a critical one-move difference. Okay, let me just show you why. Okay, the difference is that white has a little Zwischenzug here that he didn't have before. Okay, the threat is to come down here with mate, and suddenly black has to stop and deal with that, or he's in serious trouble. So it's probably going to necessitate bringing the queen back to get out of these checks. Okay, and then something's going to fall. Okay, see, and the king doesn't have E7 as a flight square, so black must retreat the queen, and then he can't win back this piece he's offering. So black took here, and white took with the queen. Now I don't think the trick still works. It still doesn't work because the white position is active. If knight takes G2, you start running into some difficulties. I think with queen A3, queen A6 check. I was looking at this. Let's see, queen A6 check. Oops, queen A6 check, king D7, and I think it's some of these tricks similar to what happened in the game. A knight E5 check comes in at some point, and black just gets embarrassed. I don't remember everything, but anyway, black did things this way, and this starts getting in a bad game. He probably was still surviving with at least an equal game from this position. But he's got to play careful. obviously queen d7 is a mistake. It seems to lead to a quick loss of the game because of queen a6 check. Kind of a shame, but black could even consider queen d3 here, but you're basically playing within a level game. The advantage that was there is now gone. Anyway, there was an exchange here, and now what's curious is black did play it. And here, let's double check the time. He spent basically his increment plus 4 seconds, so he'd probably seen it. Maybe he realized he had missed it, and he had it in the back of his head, and was careful not to play it the other times when it led to disaster. But unfortunately, the position is still lost. It just doesn't work now. The opportunity was there, and the opportunity vanished. And white finds a nice way to continue. Okay. Now, what black should have done here is just come back with the king. Maybe white will take a draw. Probably white won't take a draw, but I said maybe white will take a draw. Make white find the right moves here. And the right move is to play, I believe, knight e5. Knight e5 cuts off d7 from the king. So let's take a look at that real quick. Knight e5. What's black do? Oops. Sorry about that. Okay, what's black do? The threat is queen a6 check, right? And the king no longer has d7 as a flight square. So let's just go ahead and take the rook and see what happens. Okay? If we take the rook, make white prove something. Alright, so if white checks, the king must go to b8, and now it looks like a mate and 2 to me. Knight c6 check, and king goes there, and we munch on a7, and it's checkmate. So let's go back. So king c8, knight e5. This is a serious threat that that white has, and it's difficult to see how to see what black can do here. But it wouldn't have hurt to at least try to repeat the position. Maybe make white find it. But white's playing pretty quick himself here. He's only consumed 2 minutes off his clock. Maybe he's not going to see it. Maybe he's happy with the draw. Maybe he has to go and doesn't care. But as the game continued, it just got really bad for black in a hurry. Let's take a quick look at what happened. Okay. So c6, again, the problem with it was not only does it twofold. Not only does it still fail on the board, it fails because the outside chance that white would take a repetition has disappeared. Okay, so white just continues normally, and queen check, and now black has one legal move. So this should have been an easy continuation for black to see. And now comes this check, and it's just gruesome. King moves anywhere. There's all kinds of discoveries to worry about, and if king d6, bishop a3 check is coming in. Even on king d7, bishop a6 is coming, as well as king e7, queen takes, c7 is coming. White just has his choices of how to win this. So black gave up the queen, and essentially that's just tantamount to resigning, because now black's down a knight for a queen, right? And he saves the knight, but white's just too strong now. He just finds good moves, offers an exchange just to corral the black king, and bishop e3 threatens a mate. Bishop g5 directly would have worked. It sure looks like it would have worked, but this is fine. And black gets a spite check in, and he just tucks the king in the corner and ends the spite checks. Rook d7, and then this check, and looks like something else is about to fall. Yeah, pawn. It repeats the position, but there's a difference. The pawn is gone on c6, and now white just comes back here. Now that knight is trapped. The knight doesn't have a way out. Well, it can go to d2, but there's problems. And here are the problems. This check. And what can black do? He can only play this. Now, if anything, f3 just corrals the knight, but white finds a good move. He plays queen check, forcing the king to d7 where the d5 pawn falls. And now white could collect the knight, but white's careful and sees what's happening and gives this check, and unfortunately game is over because white has checkmate. So the attack ended up being white's after all. Could have been black's. It didn't happen. So it's a tough game for black, but I give him credit for trying. He was able to achieve a winning position. He just didn't win it. So what more can you ask? You do have to finish off a win if you get it, but just getting a win sometimes against in a shorter number of moves against a player of about equal rating is certainly an accomplishment. So best of luck to both of you gentlemen in the next game. Thanks everyone for looking, for your time spent, and look forward to making another video for you real soon. Take care.